Part 54. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 531. Thinking of this, the Supreme Emperor couldn't help but feel a little regretful. A genius like Rong Yu is rare to see in 100 years. If he hadn't been obsessed with the love between his children, he would have had some ambition to dominate the world. In today's world, I'm afraid the surname has long been Rong. The surname Rong will become the most noble surname in the world. Unfortunately, there is no if. On July 22, King Yan arrived with his envoys. Yan Wang Wei Wushuan was born as a dancing girl. She had a humble status since she was a child. Due to her unparalleled beauty, she was given to Queen Dongling as a gift 30 years ago. Who would have thought that such a prince with no right to speak would actually defeat the other princes a few years later and become the most noble king of the Yan kingdom, and let his dancing girl mother sit on the throne of the Yan king and queen mother of honor. What's more, I didn't expect that even the powerful northern Xinjiang country that firmly controlled Yan country had declared its demise, while Yan country, a small country, was still alive and well. Sure enough, it proves the saying that things in the world are unpredictable. Although Wei Wushuan is already middle-aged, his handsome appearance can still glimpse a bit of the splendor of his youth. When he entered the Ziki palace, his attitude was very low, which was in line with the attitude of a king of a small country. However, Chu Qinghuang did not neglect it and still held a banquet according to the standards of a king. The palace banquet was very lively. The Supreme Emperor and concubine Xian did not enter the palace, nor did Rong Yu and Nan 11. Only the Emperor of Zhou dynasty, who had been solemnly entertained, was invited to the table again to discuss the marriage. The scene was grand and the palace banquet was lively. After the palace dancers finished their dance, they filed away. Chu Qinghuang and King Yan raised their glasses and drank together. My marriage to the Yan kingdom is a matter of great joy to me. The crown prince of Yan, Fukang, has an extraordinary appearance. With his extraordinary abilities and outstanding bearing, he is the perfect choice to become the royal husband. I am very satisfied with him. As soon as these words came out, the ministers of Ziki couldn't help but be suspicious. Extraordinary appearance, extraordinary ability, and outstanding bearing? Has Her Majesty the Queen met Prince Yan? Wait, the Yan King's crown prince guard Fukang? The ministers looked at each other, and an incredible idea suddenly came to their minds. They in Ziki already have an emperor's side husband Fukang, and another guard Fukang? Are there many people named Fukang in the world? I have a proposal, Emperor Zhou said, taking advantage of the wedding ceremony between Her Majesty the Queen and Prince Yan. All the kings from all over the world are here. We can sign a peace treaty and all countries will live in harmony. I hope there will be no war in the world from now on. I wonder what Her Majesty the Queen wants. As soon as these words came out, both the envoys of the Zhou dynasty and the ministers of the Western Qi dynasty nodded. His Majesty the Emperor of the Zhou dynasty has a good proposal, Minister Ziki said. Every time there is a war, the people who suffer are the common people. Peace in the world is what everyone yearns for. Yes, I hope there will be no war for 100 years and that people in all countries can have a peaceful and prosperous age. Chu Qinghuang nodded slowly. I also hate war. War wastes people and money. If all countries can live in friendship, it will be beneficial to both the king and the people. The ambitious northern Xinjiang is the best lesson. It has persisted in its evil intentions for decades, but in the end it ended up destroying the country first. As we all know, after every war, even if the battle is won, it takes a long time to cultivate and recuperate. It is everyone's wish for all countries to live together in peace and without war within 100 years. The eldest princess of Shu should be arriving soon, Emperor Zhou smiled. Before coming here, I also asked spies to find out the news. I will see them in about 3 or 2 days. Since Her Majesty the Queen has no objection to the alliance between countries, then after the eldest princess of Shu arrives, we can sit down and sign a peace agreement together. Chu Qinghuang nodded, his eyes falling on the emperor's face. She had never met Emperor Zhou before he arrived in Ziki, but Chu Qinghuang knew that he was his father's nephew and her cousin, so after the fall of northern Xinjiang, in a sense, the four kingdoms of the world were actually already a family. Since we are a family, we can naturally sign a friendly agreement. However, peace cannot last long, and people's hearts are fickle. Just because the kings of various countries can live in harmony today does not mean that it will still be the case 100 years from now. All they can do is to seek a peaceful and prosperous world for the people of the world during their lifetime. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 532. The ministers were discussing the matter of forming a friendly alliance, and for the moment they ignored the idea of seeing the true appearance of Fukang, the crown prince of Yan. Since he was the crown prince who came to get married, it was natural that he should meet with Her Majesty the Queen first. However, the ministers only heard the words of King Yan from beginning to end, and never saw the face of Prince Yan. Moreover, they naturally ignored the matter because they talked about the alliance. On July 25, Yeqing Cheng, the eldest princess of Shu, and her husband Yunting arrived in the imperial capital of Ziki. The kings and dignitaries of the four countries gathered together, and Ziki ushered in the most glorious and lively moment in history. First of all, congratulations to Her Majesty the Queen of Ziki and His Majesty the Emperor of the Great Zhou Dynasty. Yeqing Cheng sent a generous gift and sincerely blessed, congratulations on the expansion of the territory of the two countries, congratulations on the destruction of the northern territory, and the spread of Your Majesty the Queen's reputation. Chu Qinghuang responded politely, Elder Princess, please take a seat. Another grand palace banquet. In less than half a month, 3 grand palace banquets were held in the palace, which cost a lot of money. However, there were many congratulatory gifts from Zhou Dynasty and Shu Kingdom. In comparison, the money consumed by the palace banquet was insignificant. I originally thought that this was something that I had to deal with all my strength. After all, these were the kings and dignitaries from all over the world, and their status should not be underestimated. And now that the 4 remaining countries are all powerful, the ministers of Ziki were afraid that one of them would the poor reception cause dissatisfaction among the kings, and the peaceful alliance instantly turned into a sword fight on the battlefield. But they were wrong. Neither the Emperor of Zhou nor the eldest princess of Shu seemed to have any heirs. When speaking to Their Majesty the Queen, their tone was particularly gentle, as if they were treating their own juniors. Well, Their Majesty the Queen is indeed young. But countries are not judged by their age, otherwise the Emperor of Northern Xinjiang would not have personally set foot in Ziki, and even tried to send people to assassinate Her Majesty the Queen one after another. In addition to having no heirs, the Ziki ministers also found that these kings and dignitaries particularly liked to stay in a separate courtyard in the imperial city. Except for a few formal palace banquets, they almost never appeared in the palace at other times. Her Majesty the Queen is pregnant and needs to rest, and they don't want to disturb Her Majesty's peace. It's really strange. As Her Majesty the Queen's wedding ceremony approaches, the officials of the Ministry of Rights and the Inner Court are busy. The civil and military ministers of the Manchu dynasty dare not slack off at all, and all government affairs are handled in an orderly manner. At the end of July, the Dongling War King arrived in Ziki with his envoys. Xie Xiaofu and General Xian Yuanyao accompanied them and sent a grand congratulatory gift to congratulate Ziki on their victory in the battle in northern Xinjiang, their great defeat in northern Xinjiang, and their victory in the northern Xinjiang. Half of the territory. The gifts included 50,000 taels of gold, 800,000 taels of silver, 20 boxes of silk and satin, 20 boxes of jade treasures, 20 boxes of antiques, calligraphy and paintings, and 20 young men in their prime. After the ceremony officer announced the congratulations, the hall was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. A young man in his prime? 20 people? Boxes of congratulatory gifts were piled in the main hall, glittering gold ingots, white silver, boxes of valuable jade antiques, authentic calligraphy and paintings by famous artists. The ministers of Ziki sighed inwardly that Dongling was rich and wealthy. Fukang, who was standing beside Chu Qing Huang, only focused his gaze on the faces of the 20 young men standing in the main hall. There are 4 people in each row, 5 rows in total. They have handsome and delicate appearance, with downturned eyebrows and eyes. The eldest man has a weak crown, and the youngest is only 15 or 16 years old. I dare not say that they are 1 in 1,000, but they are definitely 1 in 100 in appearance and figure. I heard that Her Majesty the Queen has a special liking for the shadow guards. Xiejin smiled slightly, with an extraordinary look on his face. My emperor ordered people to carefully select 20 young people, among whom the 6 shadow guards are all the top masters of the martial arts pavilion, loyal and heroic. Chu Qing Huang sat quietly on the dragon chair, her expression a little subtle. After being silent for a while, she said, "Why isn't the eldest brother here? Brother Emperor originally planned to come here, but the news that the Queen's wife was suddenly diagnosed with pregnancy made it inconvenient to travel long distances. Brother Emperor had to stay in Dongling to take care of sister-in-law." Rongzhan said, "Brother Emperor asked me to send him off on my behalf." Congratulations to Ziki for their great victory in the battle with northern Xinjiang. Chu Qing Huang raised his hand. "Second Emperor brother and Mr. Xie, please take a seat. All envoys, please take a seat." 20 young men were still standing in the hall. Fukang had a calm expression on his face. He could not see any hostility, and of course he did not show any blatant dissatisfaction. If these 20 people were given by others, maybe he could kill them one by one. Throw them all out. But the person who carefully selected these beautiful boys was His Majesty Emperor Dongling, his uncle and Nuanuan's biological brother. Fukang dare not be disrespectful. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 533. These men were given to me by the imperial brother. Xiejin smiled and nodded, "That's right. In that case, I would like to thank the first emperor for his kindness. He has a good intention." Chu Qing Huang could not see Xian Yuanhao for the time being, so naturally he could not ask in person whose idea it was that Dongling sent so many men, so he simply said, "Fukang, take these people to the dark pavilion for resettlement later." Fukang pursed his lips and relaxed, "Yes." Xiejin raised his eyebrows, "Your Majesty the Queen, you don't like these young people." "No," Chu Qing Huang said calmly, "it can be seen that these are the best young men in 100. They all have extraordinary bearing. I think they are very good." Xiejin clicked his tongue, "Everyone has extraordinary bearing, so why are they sent to the dark pavilion for training? Don't you think it's a waste of natural resources? My father is currently living in another courtyard on the outskirts of the city. Mr. Xie will remember to go and greet him later." Chu Qing Huang sat on the chair, raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and looked at Xiejin, who was sitting there. Xian Yuanyao next to him asked, "Uncle Yao, haven't you tried to cheer up your husband recently?" As soon as these words came out, the faces of the Ziki ministers suddenly changed. Her Majesty the Queen openly made fun of the marriage between Mr. Xie and General Xian Yuan. Xiejin has been feeling a little tired recently. Xian Yuanyao frowned, "Do you want my little niece to be taught how to control a husband? Master Xie is now in a high and powerful position. I'm afraid not many people in Dongling would dare to pluck the hair from a tiger's head. However, the Xianyuan family has ancestral family methods. Uncle Yao can try it, Her Majesty the Queen said lightly. You can also add some more the fun between husband and wife. Xiejin drank tea calmly, with a calm smile on his lips, which was completely different from the embarrassed expressions on the faces of the ministers of Ziki and the envoys of Zhou and Shu. It's not that there are no family methods, it's just that he has used them too few times over the years, so he has developed an increasingly unreliable temperament, Qian Yuanyao said, sighing faintly. In the final analysis, I am still soft-hearted. I should have done it in the first place, learn from the Lord. He has also developed this face, and he speaks calmly and calmly. After all, those who are close to the ink are evil. After being with people like Xiejin for so many years, he is no longer the innocent look he used to be. Study with the Lord? Everyone was puzzled. What to study? Chu Qinghuang was silent for a moment. When it comes to this topic, the kings and dignitaries of other countries seem to be unable to say anything, because the style of cut sleeves is not popular in all countries, and the dignitaries of various countries do not have male favorites in private, but even if they do, they still have the mentality of trying new things. Would an individual take the relationship between a man and a man seriously? Who else would put such feelings on the table so openly and openly? Whether it was the emperor of Zhou dynasty or the eldest princess of Shu, although they were once wrong-use people, they did not know Minister Dongling very well, and it was not easy to speak rashly. Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao are powerful officials among the powerful officials in Dongling. In these years, Dongling has been peaceful and prosperous, and there has been no war. Therefore, even though the two of them are known to everyone in Dongling, they are far from famous in other countries. Far and wide. The reason they knew these two people was because of their special relationship that was not accepted by the world, but did not take the world seriously. It was regarded as a strange thing and spread all over the world within a few years. Dignitaries from various countries would occasionally tell it as a joke when visiting brothels. Some people even compiled their stories into storybooks. But for the two people in the story, it doesn't hurt. They don't care what others think. After so many years of ups and downs, they could laugh it off if someone criticized or ridiculed them in front of them, let alone those remarks that they could not hear at all. However, Xian Yuanyao knew the rules. At the palace banquet, not only their own family members were present, but also distinguished guests from other countries. There was no need to discuss their private affairs unscrupulously. So Xian Yuanyao quickly changed the subject. I heard that the side husband of the emperor of Western Qi has become his master. As a man, it's time to see the real thing on the school field and then take some time to discuss it. After speaking, he looked at Chu Qinghuang and said, "Little niece, should it be okay?" Minister Ziki had different expressions and couldn't help but look at each other in confusion. Apprenticeship? How come they don't know? Why do they have the illusion that these distinguished guests from other countries know Their Majesty the Queen and her husband better than they themselves? The regent and queen who abdicated in Dongling confirmed that Their Majesty is the adopted daughter. This is not wrong, but does this mean that their affairs are under the control of the powerful people of various countries? Could it be that by using the excuse of recognizing their adopted daughter, they actually planted a secret line within the Ziki court? Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 534. It must be said that the ministers of Ziki were very imaginative. But no one answered the questions in their minds. All the envoys from the four kingdoms of the world were present, and the scene was certainly grand and extraordinary. From marriage to territory, From war to peace, from governing the country to family and national laws, the atmosphere was peaceful and relaxed, without any sense of tense tension. It was like friends from all over the world sitting together drinking tea and chatting. At this time, in the courtyard on the outskirts of the city, the Supreme Emperor and concubine Xian were sitting and chatting, with obvious emotion on their faces. King Huang's reputation is so great. It's just a wedding ceremony, and envoys from all over the world come to support it. It's really disappointing. Think. Recalling that he was still young when he came to the throne, no envoy from any country paid attention to him, whether he ascended the throne, got married, or later took charge of the government. Compared with the grand occasion now, he simply dared not think about it. Decades passed by like a fleeting cloud. As expected, time is not forgiving. Concubine Xian took a sip of tea. The Emperor of Zhou and the eldest Princess of Shu have been coming to the other courtyard frequently in the past 2 days. Who are they meeting? The Emperor has not seen it yet? The grand occasion in Ziki is indeed unexpected, but the key point is the characters are actually right in front of you. The Supreme Emperor nodded slowly. You can see it when you see it, but Qing Huang can make the regent consider her adopted daughter, which in itself means that her strength and character have been recognized. Otherwise, there is no need for Dazhu, Shu, and Dongling to send her such a generous gift. Concubine Xian hummed, indeed. So in the final analysis, it is King Huang's credit that Ziki is as strong as it is today. Concubine Xian nodded, that's true. Xian'er, the Supreme Emperor suddenly changed the topic and looked at her affectionately. I have been walking around in the past 2 years since I abdicated the throne. I have also understood a lot of things. In just a few decades, power and wealth are fleeting, and life is considered complete only if a person can grow old. Concubine Xian was startled, then expressed a subtle expression, what do you mean? Suddenly learned to be deeply in love. The Emperor cleared his throat in embarrassment and stretched out his hand to hold her hand. I have been a loner for most of my life. I have seen the intrigues in the harem, and I have also experienced the warmth and coldness of people. Whether you are favored or not favored, it is normal in the harem, but how can I never thought that the person who would be by my side in the end would be you. Concubine Xian was silent for a moment. I didn't expect that either. I didn't get the love of the Emperor when I was young, and I didn't even have a son or a half of a daughter. At such an old age, I have to serve you, an old man who is half a century old. My life is also miserable. The Emperor's smile froze slightly. Before he could show his tenderness and affection, he was choked by her words and could not utter a single word. He finally stirred things up, so why can't he cooperate? After all, he was once the king of a country. If you want a child, you can have a child if you want. Concubine Xian said calmly, I am so old, what should I be born for? Can you support me after I am born? The Supreme Emperor was speechless. Rongyu at this time, in the flower hall facing the lake, Nan 11 looked at the sparkling lake. Her voice was calm and calm. We have enjoyed what we should have enjoyed over the years, and we have seen the scenery we should see. We will wait until Nuan gets married. After the ceremony, go back to Dongling and stay for a while. How her second child is about to be born. They should go back and enjoy family happiness, and help the young couple take care of the baby so that the Emperor and Empress can also enjoy their sweet little life. Yerongyu nodded. When the 3 children are not together, sometimes it is impossible to take care of both. Nan 11 frowned, because of Nuan's fate, she is the one we care about the most. In recent years, we have paid less attention to Hao and Zhan'er. Rongyu was silent for a moment. If you care less, they might feel more comfortable. Nan 11 understood what he meant and couldn't help but smile. Zhan'er is like a mouse seeing a cat when he sees you. You and your son should do well when you go back this time. Be gentler, care more about them, and don't always it's to make your son fear you. Rongyu pondered for a moment and nodded slowly. It's really time to take good care of him. For such an old man, he hasn't even seen his wife. I don't know what he wants to do. Rongzhan, who was drinking in the palace, suddenly shuddered for some reason. What's wrong with King Zhan? Xiejin turned to look at Rongzhan. Cold. Rongzhan looked at him faintly. It's unbearably hot outside. How did Mr. Xie know that I'm cold? After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 535. Xiejin suddenly understood, since it's not cold, someone is talking about the King of War. As for who is talking, anyone who can make the King of War tremble can be thought of with the tip of his toes. Rongzhan glanced at him expressionlessly, looked away, picked up the wine cup and drank it all in one gulp. Taking into account that Chu Qinghuang was pregnant, the palace banquet did not last too long. After Ye Qingcheng, the eldest princess of the Shu kingdom, took the lead in calling for the end, the monarchs of Dongling, Dazhu and Shu all stood up and left, and Rongzhan walked up to Chu Qinghuang. He said a few words and told her to have a good rest these 2 days and not to be too tired. He also told Fu Kang a few words, then turned around and left with the others. Chu Qinghuang and Fu Kang quickly returned to Changming Palace. The palace servants served tea, melons, and fruits, and Fu Kang stood beside Chu Qinghuang, carefully squeezing her shoulders and pressing her temples. Are you tired? Fine. Fu Kang picked up a piece of pear from the fruit plate with a bamboo stick and brought it to Chu Qinghuang's mouth. After she finished eating, he fed her a few more grapes, then put the bamboo stick back and knelt down to rub her calf. Ankle. Everyone is here, and the wedding day is approaching. Chu Qinghuang lowered his eyes slightly and looked at Fu Kang. Are you nervous? Fu Kang thought for a while and slowly shook his head. I thought it would be very nervous and stressful, but now I don't feel so nervous. Why? Maybe it's because no one is making things difficult for me, Fu Kang said with a slight smile. The first emperor brother didn't come, the second emperor brother was very kind to me, and the emperor of Zhou dynasty and the eldest princess of Shu didn't have any heirs. I felt that he's just a guest, not pretending to be an elder. They don't dare. Chu Qinghuang smiled. Do you think my father and mother are just decorations? Fu Kang pursed his lips and smiled softly. Yes, my wife loves me. The corner of Chu Qinghuang's mouth twitched. Look at your potential. Of course, because I'm pregnant, they don't dare to make me feel bad, Chu Qinghuang said and sighed. Being pregnant before getting married is probably the only benefit. She can't be tired at night and can't be too tired during the day. Apart from the fact that no one dares to make her unhappy, there are no other benefits. Movement is restricted everywhere. The palace people felt like they were facing a formidable enemy all day long. The imperial doctor also gave constant instructions, and Fu Kang, a clingy spirit, was extremely cautious for fear of accidents. Chu Qinghuang occasionally feels tired. Fu Kang knelt on the ground and slowly put his face on her abdomen. His voice was so soft that he was afraid of scaring someone. The imperial doctor said that the child can hear the heartbeat after 3 months. It's not even 3 months yet. Fu Kang stayed close to it and didn't move for a while before saying, I just want to feel it. Chu Qinghuang touched his head. Do you want a son or a daughter? When you give birth to a son, you are a son, and when you give birth to a daughter, you are a daughter, Fu Kang said. Your Majesty, you don't have to worry about this. Anyway, their son and daughter are their children, the children she worked hard to give birth to during her 10-month pregnancy. During this period, Fu Kang was immersed in the joy of becoming a father. Before his mood completely calmed down, he would often feel like he was in a trance. Sometimes when he woke up from a dream in the middle of the night, he couldn't help but pinch his thigh hard. The clear pain told him that this was not a dream. But the blue and purple marks on his thigh were soon seen by Chu Qinghuang. She felt distressed and angry, and scolded him severely. Later, Fu Kang didn't dare to do it anymore. However, every time he wakes up, as long as he holds the person next to him tightly in his arms, all the confusion and anxiety in his heart will be brushed away, and he can tell himself with peace of mind that all this is true. Of course, when you are pregnant with a beautiful woman, sometimes it is inevitable that you cannot help yourself. As a normal and experienced man, enduring the torture of abstinence is also a test that must be passed in life. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 536. August 19th is here in a blink of an eye, and the wedding ceremony of Her Majesty the Queen and her husband Wei Fuqiang is held as scheduled. This is a special and grand wedding ceremony. In addition to the grand and complicated procedures of the royal family, the identities of the people participating in the ceremony are also unprecedentedly precious. The kings of various countries gathered together, and the scene was grand and solemn. Amid the singing of the ceremonial officials, Her Majesty the Most Honorable Queen of Ziki walked down the long red carpet. The bright yellow dragon robe embroidered with 5-clawed dragon patterns shone brightly in the sun, with a feather fan and a gorgeous dress dragging on the ground. The man next to her was tall and handsome, and the royal robe of similar color made Fuqiang's figure stand out. His handsome and slender appearance became more dazzling and impressive against the royal robe. Under the attention of everyone, the two walked up the steps step by step and walked into the hall. There were 4 chairs in the hall. Rongyu and Nan 11 sat on the 2 main seats on the left, and the 2 chairs on the right were occupied by the emperor and concubine Xian. In such an occasion, no one would question why the woman presiding over the wedding was not the empress's biological mother, concubine Duan, and no one would question the identities of Rongyu and Nan 11, even if they were just adoptive parents, they were legitimate elders. Moreover, the abdicated regent and empress of Dongling were so famous and high-ranking among various countries that even the abdicated emperor was respectful to them, and no one would be stupid enough to raise objections at this time. It was an honor for Ziki that they could preside over the wedding for the empress. The wedding ceremony of Chu Qinghuang and Wei Fuqiang was not only a marriage, but also followed the steps of the custom of marriage, worshipping heaven and earth, worshipping parents, and husband and wife worshipping each other. Guests gathered on both sides of the hall, all watching the scene in silence and silently sending blessings. The emperor frowned, and his eyes fell on Fuqiang's face frequently. Although Nan 11 explained Fuqiang's identity to him a few days ago, he knew that Fuqiang, the leader of the shadow guards of the Ziki Dark Chamber, was actually Wei Fuqiang, the crown prince of the Yan Kingdom, and Qinghuang wanted to marry only this one person from the beginning to the end. But when he saw Fuqiang, he still felt a little complicated. Many unpleasant things had happened to the Ziki royal family. The late Queen Mother completely disrupted the bloodline of the Ziki royal family with her own strength, and these truths could never be revealed and could only be buried with those who had passed away. The emperor could only comfort himself. Fortunately, another Wei Hung was involved in the process of Wei Fuqiang and Chu Tianzhen being swapped. Oh, Wei Hung is dead. Otherwise, if it was just the swap of Fuqiang and Chu Tianzhen's identities, today's situation would become an incestuous drama of brother and sister falling in love, which would be fate. Compared with the complicated mood of the emperor, the reactions of the ministers of Ziki were much more direct. One by one, they wiped their faces, held their foreheads, and sighed. Fuqiang is Wei Fuqiang, and the imperial concubine is also the principal concubine. He is the principal husband, and he is also the concubine. In the end, Her Majesty's harem is actually just this one person. They felt like monkeys, seemingly smart, but in fact, they were all fooled by the truth. When they heard Wei Fuqiang's name, they wondered if there were many people named Fuqiang in the world. They didn't expect that he was just one person. It's too mysterious. Fuqiang, the leader of the Dark Pavilion, became the crown prince of Yan State. What kind of secret is hidden in this matter? Her Majesty didn't seem to want to explain to them, but doesn't this matter need to be explained to everyone? What if Yan's state has bad intentions? Everyone had different ideas in their hearts, but it did not affect the smooth progress of the wedding ceremony. The ceremony was grand, but it also reduced many complicated and heavy procedures. The itinerary that originally required a day was only retained for about an hour. But no one said anything. Because Her Majesty was pregnant, everything was based on the air. A long red carpet was laid in the center of the hall. Rong Yu, Nan 11, the Emperor, and concubine Xian looked at the perfect couple in front of them. On both sides sat the Emperor of the Great Zhou and his envoys, the Princess of Shu and her husband and their envoys, the War King of Dongling and his envoys. The top figures in the world were all here, witnessing the grand wedding of Nuan and Fu Kang. The gifts had been delivered in advance, but the War King, who was sitting at the table, stroked his chin and thought to himself that he didn't know Nuan was pregnant when he came, so he only prepared a wedding gift. He probably didn't have time to come when this little nephew or niece was born, so he should also prepare a gift in advance, right? Well, prepare the Emperor's brother's gift as well. But what do children like? Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 537. After the wedding ceremony comes the bridal chamber. Although the process is simple, it is generally step by step and there are no mistakes. After paying homage to heaven and earth, the newlyweds were sent to Changming Palace. There was a brief silence in the main hall. Then, delicacies and royal meals were presented one after another like flowing water. The aroma of wine overflowed and the atmosphere was warm. The handsome and smart palace servants served the distinguished guests with lowered eyebrows and eyes, not daring to show any slightness. Lord Yan was sitting in the banquet, his calm expression a little nervous. Although one of the people attending today's wedding ceremony was his son, he did not feel proud of his status as an elder at all. All these distinguished guests in the palace made him feel on pins and needles. Strictly speaking, he has been the king of the Yan kingdom for more than 20 years. He has the majesty of a person who has been in power all year round, his magnanimity is not lacking, and he is thoughtful enough when fighting with others. But he knew in his heart that the reason why he had all the status he had today, and was able to live like a human being instead of being trampled and humiliated by others, was all because of his trip to Dongling. After so many years, he has never forgotten the unforgettable memory that Xiejin brought to him, so much so that when he saw him now, he felt a chill down his spine. Everyone who has dealt with Lord Dongling Xie knows how terrifying this person is, ruthless and thoughtful, and often does not follow the rules. As we all know, Mr. Xie and his wife were as obedient as cats in front of the regent. This shows that the regent is as terrifying as the ultimate king. So sitting here, Wei Wuxian feels like a white rabbit sitting in a wolf's den. Although the white rabbit is not young, the pressure that makes people feel that the blood is flowing backwards is always there. He was always on tenterhooks, fearing that Xiejin would turn his attention to him. He even thought over and over in his mind, how should he deal with it if Xiejin wanted to talk to him. However, his worries did not come true until the wedding ceremony was over and the banquet was held in the palace. Wei Wuxian couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. After the party was over, he waited until the guests were almost gone before he stood up. Suddenly a hand patted his shoulder, and a familiar voice sounded in his ears, "Is your king okay?" Wei Wuxian's body suddenly stiffened. Slowly turning his head, he met Xiejin's beautiful peach blossom eyes. After so many years, the young man who was so handsome back then is now a calm and handsome uncle, but these eyes are still very impressive. Wei Wuxian turned around and looked around. The guests dispersed when they should, and those who should chatted were doing so while walking. Very few people looked in their direction. He hesitated for a moment, then turned to look at Xiejin. Why are you so nervous? Xiejin seemed to notice his uneasiness and smiled casually. I just wanted to say congratulations to you. Congratulations to Yan Guo for marrying Ziki, and congratulations to him for having a queen as his daughter-in-law. Although Yan Kingdom will belong to Ziki from now on, and Yan Kingdom's territory will be included in Ziki's territory, there seems to be nothing to congratulate on the surface. But I still want to say congratulations. Wei Wuxian's voice was dry. Thank you. Wei Wuxian, Xian Yuanyao came over and saw the person talking to Xiejin. He smiled and said hello, is your mother okay? Wei Wuxian glanced at him and nodded, thank you for your concern, General. My mother is fine. Xiejin, you can't scare people. Xian Yuanyao reached out and patted Xiejin's head, don't forget that Her Majesty the Queen and Wei Fukang are married. If you dare to bully my old father, be careful that Her Majesty the Queen loves her husband so much. I want to settle accounts with you. Xiejin laughed, which of your eyes saw me bullying others? He just came over to say hello, and he was an old friend after all. Besides, Wei Wu was always nervous, as if he had seen a man-eating tiger. He just wanted to say something to the other person calmly, in order to tell him that the Dongling people were not that scary. From now on, we are all good friends who can be equals, so don't be so nervous. Northern Xinjiang is destroyed, the Duanmu royal family can no longer make trouble, Yang Guo and Ziki have become a family, and the situation in the world is developing for the better. Xiejin raised his eyebrows and smiled, what do you think, Your Majesty? Wei Wuxian took a deep breath and nodded slowly, Master Xie is right, it is indeed developing in a good direction. Would you like to go out for a drink? Wei Wuxian considered the meaning of his words. Is this negotiation or force? If it was just for discussion and inquiry, he would not go. He wanted to stay as far away from Xiejin as possible. After spending time with him for a long time, he was afraid that his life would be short. But if the other party wanted him to go, he seemed to have no room to refuse. Forget it if you don't want to go. Xiejin clicked his tongue, it's as if I want to force you into prostitution. Wei Wuxian's expression changed slightly. He was almost forced into prostitution back then, right? Yao Yao, let's go have a drink. Xiejin put his arm around Xian Yuanyao's shoulders, turned around and walked out of the hall. After all these years, Yao Yao is still what I like. Xian Yuanyao slapped his paws away, it sounds like you really have read a lot of people. Xiejin smiled calmly and contentedly, at any rate, I also dismissed 3,000 concubines for Yao Yao back then. I dare not say that I have countless people, but tonight's housework, do you think it's better to use gold or rattan? Xiejin's voice stopped, and then he smiled slowly and said, as long as Yao Yao can bear it, everything will be fine. Xian Yuanyao glared at him, then use both. Xiejin nodded with a smile, everyone listens to Yao Yao. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 538. In the Changming Palace, Chu Qing Huang took off the golden crown with dragon patterns on her head, took off her earrings, put on loose and light clothes, and leaned on the brocade couch covered with soft fur blankets. Sit down. The imperial doctor is already waiting. Do you want to let them in? Although the wedding ceremony has reduced many procedures, it is still more tiring than usual in general. Her Majesty the Queen is pregnant, so the imperial doctor has to be extremely cautious. Chu Qing Huang hummed, let them come in. It didn't take long to take a pulse as a routine. For the sake of their peace of mind and to keep his ears quiet, Chu Qing Huang didn't bother to say anything more about these trivial matters. The imperial doctors came into the palace to pay their respects, and came forward one by one to take the pulse of Her Majesty the Queen. They made sure that the dragon's body was healthy and the pulse was normal. Only then did everyone feel relieved. Fu Kang washed his hands and came over to peel the grapes for His Majesty. I told you that you were too careful. Chu Qing Huang opened his mouth and ate a peeled grape. Martial arts practitioners are strong and not so delicate. They don't need to be worried all the time. Fu Kang didn't argue and peeled another grape for her. The palace servants have become accustomed to the intimacy between the two from time to time, and will automatically withdraw at this time, leaving Her Majesty the Queen and the imperial concubine alone. Chu Qinghuang's eyes fell on Fu Kang's hand peeling grapes. The knuckles of the 10 fingers are clearly defined, fair and slender, without any blemishes. Life has been good in the past 2 years, and there are very few opportunities to kill people personally. Moreover, although the shadow guard of the Dark Pavilion can use 18 kinds of weapons, what he is best at is dagger. So much so that the calluses on the palms of the hands have faded a lot, and the hands are more beautiful than before. When the grapes were brought to his mouth, Chu Qinghuang bit them together with his fingers. Fu Kang was stunned for a moment, and then his eyes slowly moved to the bitten hand, and he saw the glistening red lips. The atmosphere instantly became sultry. Fu Kang leaned over, kissed her lips, and put his forehead against hers. His voice was low and a little aggrieved. Tonight's wedding night, we can only sleep under the quilt. Nuan, please don't tease me. He has endured hardship during this period. For a man who has just started to indulge in pornography and is physically strong, having sex every night is the norm. However, the imperial doctor had expressed it implicitly, and Minjiao and Jinlan also directly reminded him that for the sake of His Majesty's health and the safety of his children, he must exercise restraint. Especially in the first 3 months, you must not mess around. It was about Nuan and the child in her belly. Fu Kang had to endure it no matter how hard it was. Fu Kang sighed, I don't have good self-control to begin with, but when Nuan teases me, I dash. You said it so pathetically, as if I wanted to bully you on purpose. Chu Qinghuang let go of his fingers. Do you want me to give you 2 beauties? Fu Kang shook his head repeatedly. You are not allowed to kill on the big day. The two have been on good terms for so long, and they can be considered the people who understand each other best in the world. Fu Kang's sudden words did not faze Chu Qinghuang. She chuckled, I don't understand the style. It was such a blessing to give him a beautiful woman. No one else could have imagined that he actually wanted to kill someone. Nuan, please don't have such thoughts. If any other woman dares to come close to me, she will definitely die within 10 steps. Fu Kang sat in front of her, picked up the fruit plate and concentrated on feeding her fruit to divert attention. Li, eating more fruits is good for your baby. The lifelong event has been completed. From now on, our task is to concentrate on governing the world and selecting useful talents to make the world stable. Chu Qinghuang frowned slightly and said in a calm voice, if the first child is really a daughter, you can consider it. I suggest that by directly appointing her as the concubine, the status of Ziki women can be gradually improved, but this will not be a smooth process when it comes to the status of men, and they will not compromise so easily. Fu Kang said, take your time, the rules are broken step by step. Those ministers in the court are no match for Nuan. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 539. Duan Muguiu, who stood on a high tower and witnessed the entire marriage ceremony, turned to look at Hongyu with an expressionless face. Ziki is no longer the Ziki of the Chu family. The city tower was heavily guarded, so Hongyu greeted Chu Xuanyi before bringing Duan Muguiu up to watch the fun. After all, Duan Muguiu's identity is very embarrassing. As Chu Qinghuang's original body, No one in the Ziki royal family knew her. As Duanmuogwiu, northern Xinjiang has now been destroyed. Her Majesty the Queen did not touch her because she knew her identity. But in the eyes of other ministers of Ziki, Duanmuogwiu was actually a subjugated princess. Hongyu scratched his head. You want Ziki to be named Chu? Duanmuogwiu slowly shook his head. Ziki no longer has the surname Chu a long time ago. Starting from her father, Ziki's bloodline was in complete chaos. The late Queen Mother single-handedly disrupted the royal family, causing trouble for decades, and she was troubled even in her old age. Now she has made a soul from another country the Queen. Duanmuogwiu looked at the guests who had dispersed. They were all important figures. The Princess of Dongling was the treasure that everyone held in their hands, but Chu Qing Huang of Ziki was once the evil god that everyone hated. What an irony. I may have to leave here. Duanmuogwiu turned his eyes slightly and looked at the blue sky. Princess Dongling is very powerful. Ziki will get better and better in the future. Hongyu said, where are you going? I don't know, just take a walk. Duanmuogwiu's expression was very calm, and his voice was also very calm. I want to see all over the world in my lifetime and see the customs of various places. It's not a waste to live for a few more years. Hongyu pondered for a moment. Actually, according to your original destiny, you can live to be 24. Duanmuogwiu said nothing. It didn't matter how long she lived. She never wanted to dwell too much on her fate. But you are different now. Your destiny has changed, and your lifespan should be extended a lot. It's just that this body limits your strength. It will be very dangerous for you, a girl, to walk around the world, Hongyu said, especially because of your appearance. Not bad, the easiest thing to miss. Xiao Xiao. Although Ziki's national power is getting stronger and stronger, the world is so vast that there are still many bandits, and there are also many ruffians and bullies who rob the women of the people. Duanmuogwiu said calmly, it's not that easy to miss me. Hongyu was about to say something more, but saw that Duanmuogwiu had already turned around and walked towards the stairs. You don't have to worry about my affairs. When to live and when to die. Since it is fate, you can't force it. Hongyu followed up, but it's always good to live a few more years, so you can see more of the beautiful mountains and rivers in the world. Duanmuogwiu ignored him. Why don't you speak? There's nothing to say, Duanmuogwiu said indifferently. I am just a ghost now with no destination, and you don't have to follow me. No matter whether the red string you pulled is a joke or something went wrong, you don't have to take it to heart. Why? I won't like you, Duanmuogwiu said in an indifferent voice. I don't even care about myself, let alone like other people. Hongyu felt very uncomfortable. I'm so good looking, but you're not attracted to me at all. You're not the only good-looking person. Duanmuogwiu walked down the stone steps. If I had been so cruel back then, I wouldn't have the imperial husband named Wei Fuqiang now. Hongyu was silent for a moment. Speaking of which, why were you so cruel to Fuqiang back then? Why so cruel? Duanmuogwiu remained silent. Was he cruel? She doesn't think so. She is even more cruel to others. The masters who taught her martial arts all died in her hands. Shouldn't her father arrange other masters for her? Wei Fuqiang survived, first because his martial arts skills were too high, and secondly because she showed mercy. Otherwise, his fate would be the same as those who died at her hands. But Duanmuogwiu was thoughtful for a moment, then turned his head to look at Hongyu. Many people died at my hands back then. Do you pity Wei Fuqiang just because he is favored by the queen? Hongyu was stunned. That's not true. If he didn't get her love, you wouldn't think I was cruel to him. Duanmuogwiu smiled sarcastically. Otherwise, why don't you feel sorry for the other people who died at my hands? Hongyu frowned, speechless for a moment. Actually, you people are all hypocritical. The life of a shadow guard is no different from the life of a palace maid. I don't know how many people die in the palace every year, and I don't see you feeling sorry for each one and trying to save them. However, a shadow guard let you take it to heart. Duan Muguio sneered, can you tell me what was different about Wei Fukang back then? After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 540. Kurha didn't speak for a while. Duan Muguio was walking on the way back to the palace, and all the palace residents passed by quickly. Some people turned a blind eye to them, while others would stop and respectfully greet Lord Hongyu. Duan Muguio ignored this. Walking to the deserted palace road, Hongyu said hesitantly, actually, no matter who you were dealing with, your methods back then were too ruthless and violent. We as Taoists have reincarnation in our hearts. The evil we did in the past life will have consequences in this life. Evil consequences, good deeds in the past life will be rewarded in this life, and every person you kill will be recorded in God's account, and you will have to pay it back in the future. Didn't the emperors of all dynasties kill more people? It can't be calculated that way, Hongyu said sternly. There are reasons why the emperor kills people. If it's because officials are incompetent and prey on the people, then he kills the people who deserve to be killed. If it's just because of violence and immorality, then those he kills will also be punished by God. Recorded in the accounts, the destruction of a dynasty is the consequences of the emperor's violence and cruelty. Similarly, the people killed by Emperor Shengming can be offset by the righteous deeds he did. This also means that the merits and demerits offset each other. Hongyu said, the emperor is not a saint, and we cannot hold him to the standards of a saint. If his faults are greater than his merits, he will still be in debt in the end. If his merits are greater than his faults, he will also get some blessings. Duan Muguio turned his head and looked at him strangely. Are you trying to influence me? No, Hongyu shook his head, I'm just telling you that evil deeds are inappropriate no matter who they are committed on. Duan Muguio was silent for a moment. What's the point of talking about this now? Her current body is not up to par, even if she wants to be ruthless, how can she put down the butcher knife and become a Buddha immediately? She couldn't resurrect the people who had died under her hands before. In that case, what was the use of telling her this? Hongyu thought about it for a while. Actually, what I mean is that after leaving this place of right and wrong, you can learn to do some good deeds to offset the bad debts you once owed. Do something good. Duan Muguio frowned, I don't have that much kindness. You can learn to do it. You will definitely not be used to it at first, but after all, everything is difficult at the beginning, but it will be much easier once you get used to it, Hongyu said, and doing good deeds can purify your soul and give you some inner satisfaction. Not interested. Why are you so stubborn? Hongyu frowned and looked at her unhappily. Why can't you make sense to a little girl who looks delicate and weak? Do you think I want to influence you so much? If it weren't for you, I don't want to have anything to do with this unreliable red thread I've been pulling. Duan Muguio said indifferently, I have already said, you can pretend that this red line does not exist, I will not force you. But this red thread exists, and I can't pretend it doesn't exist. Hongyu couldn't help but tone a little tougher, I don't care, no matter where you go next, I will follow you. Starting from next month, every day at least one good deed should be done every month. As soon as these words came out, Hongyu was startled at first, and then made an excuse for herself. Duan Muguio's appearance was too worrying, but she didn't have enough force to protect herself now. If he didn't follow, he would just afraid that she would be robbed of her wealth and sex. At any rate, Yu Lao also held a red thread. Even if the marriage didn't work out, he couldn't just watch her die miserably. Duan Muguio stopped and turned to look at him with cold eyes. Are you sick? Hongyu said, no. You stay in your Qintian prison and be a little fairy boy. If you dare to try with me, Duan Muguio said coldly and walked away. Kurio curled her lips and muttered in a low voice, it's really not cute. He still followed him like a follower. Duan Muguio's eyebrows suddenly turned cold. Do you think I can't do anything to you now? To be honest, You really can't do anything to me. Hong Yu raised his eyebrows and looked at her quite proudly. You can't beat me now, poisoning is not very effective on me, and your words are no match for me. Are there any other skills you can use? Duan Muguiu remained silent, staring coldly at this ignorant man, with a cold luster in his eyes. Hong Yu met her gaze with a sly expression on his face. Such a look might have been very scary in the past, but unfortunately now you are a weak woman with no power to restrain a chicken. Even if you are good at some poison techniques, it's inevitable that you'll encounter things you can't solve in the future, so you need a backer. What a joke, Duan Muguiu sneered. You mean, you want me to use you as my backer? As long as you talk to me properly, I'm willing to be your backer. Duan Muguiu looked him up and down. Go find a mirror and look at yourself first. Are you looking down on people? Hong Yu was unhappy. Although I look like a flower and jade, and I can't help but be frail, these are just appearances. I am a master who hides my secrets. $window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix.